Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this afternoon, we are going to look at the reduction in poverty rates in Jamaica. Now, that is what the Jamaica Observer is reporting and other newspapers online in Jamaica, that the poverty rate in Jamaica has reduced significantly to 8.2, a historic unprecedented low, according to what the papers are suggesting, that we have ever seen for a long time. I think they're suggesting since 1989. So the Observer here reports poverty in Jamaica falls 50% to record low in 2023. That's the PIOJ, that's the private, I think that's the PIOJ is the people who do the stats. Jamaica's poverty rate fell to a record 8.2% in 2023, just more than half, or 50.8%, below the 16.7% at which it stood in 2021. The Planning Institute of Jamaica presented the data on Wednesday morning during a quarterly briefing, noting that the latest figure represents the lowest ever since the poverty rate was first measured in 1989. So are they suggesting 2023? Perhaps not now. The rate was computed from the findings of the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions collected by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin. PIOJ Director General Dr. Wayne Henry, in presenting the findings and the decline in 2023, was largely driven by the country's strong post-COVID recovery, increased employment levels, a near 86% growth in the national minimum wage, the implementation of strengthened social protection programs, and robust remittance inflows. Now, it's interesting to note that having had lockdowns for about 2 years, thereabout, that our economy would have been strengthened when we were not producing anything and the economy was just in a deadlock. I am not sure what they are here suggesting. Doesn't seem like it adds up. The math is not mathing. But why tell us about what was happening in 2023? Why not tell us what is happening in 2025? So we are seeing here that the poverty rate went down in 2000, it's coming down from 2021, it was at 16.7%, and in 2023, it stood at 8.2%. So it came down double the rate. In addition to this decline in poverty, there was also a reduction in food poverty, also referred to as extreme poverty. In 2023, the food poverty rate fell to 2.8%, down from 5.8% in 2021 and 4% in 2019, also making the lowest level on record. Now, are they suggesting too that's one of the reasons why the food security might have gone down is the fact that Jamaicans were not allowed to work during COVID. So definitely they would have a high food security or insecurity. They would have had a high levels of food insecurity whilst they were not able to work. But when they went back to work, even though the work might not be something that is necessarily productive and earning them a decent wage and salary, but yet still they were able to survive better than they would have been able to survive under the strictures of the lockdown policy. Preliminary data indicates that the economy continues to recover from the effects of the hydrological shocks during the latter part of 2024. For the April to June 2025 quarter, the economy is projected to grow within the range of 0.5 to 1.5% growth, while for the fiscal year 25-26, the economy is projected to grow with a range of 1 to 2%. Henry says very, very minimal growth, right? That growth is anemic growth to say the least. So we have to be careful of what we're reporting. Now we have here that this is coming from the World Bank Group, Jamaica Poverty and Equity Brief, April 2025. After 4 successive years of poverty reduction, this is 2025, Jamaica's official national poverty rate increased from 11.0% in 2019 to 16.7% in 2021 following the COVID-19 crisis. Climate-related weather events and other shocks increasingly threaten the welfare of poor and vulnerable Jamaicans. When Hurricane Beryl hit in July 2024, agriculture, which employs a disproportionate share of the poor and vulnerable, was among the hardest hit sectors. The hurricane is estimated to have affected 45,000 farmers, causing damage valued at around $15.9 million. Hurricane Beryl also caused a spike in food prices, and while food price inflation has subsequently eased, food insecurity persists. That is what the World Bank is suggesting here, that food insecurity still persists in Jamaica. Around 32% of all households and 60% of those in the poorest wealth quintile or quintile faced moderate to severe food insecurity in 2024. Right? So in 2024, Jamaicans among the poorest wealth quintile faced moderate to severe food insecurity in 2024, according to the Food Insecurity Experience Scale. Social protection measures, including programs like the Program of the Advancement Through Health and Education PATH, have helped mitigate the economic impact of shocks by providing temporary assistance to vulnerable households, offsetting income losses, protecting jobs, countering rising prices, and stimulating demand. However, these programs will need to be enhanced to tackle growing uncertainty and proliferating shocks in the future. So what we're seeing here is that there is some amount of contradiction between what they're suggesting in the Jamaica Observer, and the Prime Minister here is intimating that there is a reduction in poverty. I don't think that there is any reduction in the poverty rate, because last year, up to last year, 2024, we were experiencing a high level of food insecurity. And we were actually compared to the likes of Haiti. Haiti was ranked a little lower than we were ranked last year, if my memory serves me right. So when we're talking about the reduction in poverty, we have to ensure that we are contextualizing what we say. Oftentimes, we speak in isolation, and people do not put the news into proper perspective. And we don't have journalists who are there doing investigative journalism, and they're there to ensure that everything is properly contextualized and Jamaicans are understanding the real truth as it concerns our economy. I don't see the journalists doing that in Jamaica. But there is a news coming here out of North America, and Jamaica is way poorer than the United States of America, what that is touted as and known to be the wealthiest economy in the world. In fact, many Jamaicans, if they should get the opportunity, would love to jump ship, and if they could, they would be in America tomorrow, because they think and they perceive the United States as being a far wealthier country with far more opportunities than Jamaica has to offer them. And that, to a large extent, is true. That, to a large extent, is true. But listen to what the report coming from the CBS is saying here. And this news was published on May the 16th, 2025. May the 16th, 2025. So it was published some days ago. The gap between what Americans earn and how much they need to bring in to achieve a basic standard of living is growing, according to a new report. The analysis from the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity, LISEP, looks beyond whether people can afford daily necessities like food and shelter, which are basic necessities, to consider whether they have the means to pay for things like the technology tools necessary for their jobs, higher education, and health and child care. Now, these are basic necessities. We're not talking about luxury here. You have to eat, have to live somewhere, and in many cases, you have to educate yourself, or you've got to get a skill if you're going to be able to participate in the job market. So LISEP tracks costs associated with what the research firm calls a basket of American dream essentials. The group says its minimal quality of life index provides a truer picture of how Americans are faring than standard economic data, such as the nation's gross domestic product and jobless rate. Let me repeat that. The group says its minimal quality of life index provides a truer picture of how Americans are faring than standard economic data, such as the nation's gross domestic product and jobless rate, which is not going to give you a true picture of what is happening in the individual lives of people. The index captures the annual change in the typical cost facing low and moderate income households who are looking to maintain a basic quality of life. So this is not talking about people who want to live luxuriously, but people who just want to be able to afford the basic necessities of life. We analyze these components not just in terms of financial figures, but as crucial elements that shape a family's capability to achieve a desirable standard of living, the group explains in a paper describing its approach. Listen to what the findings are, and especially in comparison to what you see coming out of poverty-stricken Jamaica, right? Poverty-stricken Jamaica, perhaps one of the poorest countries in the Caribbean, is Jamaica. Right? One of the poorest countries in the Caribbean is Jamaica. And if you are just looking at GDP, the raw GDP, which I don't look at to judge the standard of the wealth of economies, but if you just want to look at that, that is true, that if you look at our GDP, we are one of the lowest in the Caribbean and Latin America. The findings for the bottom 60% of US households, a minimal quality of life is out of reach. The bottom 60% of US households, a minimal quality of life is out of reach, according to the group, a research organization focused on improving lower earners' economic well-being. The middle class has been declining, and this is America. This is the wealthiest country in the world. The middle class has been declining. We just haven't recognized it fully. And Jamaicans want to rush to the United States. They want to go there tomorrow, right? If they could, not understanding that what is touted to be the richest economy, the wealthiest economy in the world, 60% of the people find it very difficult to survive and to afford basic necessities of life. So we have, it's really dangerous because it's the kind of thing that leads to social unrest, and it's not fair. The American dream is not that it's given to you, it's that if you work hard, you have a chance to get ahead and achieve the things in life that you want to achieve. It's not living in a tent, not having to steal. And how many Americans are living in their cars if you're watching the news? The Ludwig Institute also says that the nation's official unemployment rate of 4.2% greatly understates the level of economic distress around the US. Now, this is what we want in Jamaica. In the United States, for the most part, and I'm not suggesting that the mainstream media here, but private institutions, independent media often do some type of investigative reporting. In Jamaica, we have none of that. And the podcasts which are there are just there uttering nonsense to you, and you think that you're learning from them, and they're not saying anything. But the fact of the matter is that here, this institute, the Ludwig Institute, also says that the nation's official unemployment rate of 4.2% greatly understates the level of economic distress around the US. Factoring in workers who are stuck in poverty wage jobs and people who are unable to find full-time employment, the US jobless rate now tops 24%, according to LISA. So here we have the official data coming out of the United States. The official unemployment data is that it is a 4.2% in terms of unemployment rate is at 4.2%. But according to the real data, having studied the lives of the people on the ground, they are assuming, the Ludwig Institute is assuming, has calculated that US jobless rate now tops 24%. 24%. And we're suggesting that we have an unemployment rate in Jamaica of 8 point whatever percent, right? Or 3, excuse me, I think it's 4 point something too. I think our unemployment rate, according to the official data, is also at 4.2, which is a lie. That is a lie in the poorest or one of the poorest, perhaps the second poorest in the Caribbean, the second poorest country in the Caribbean and Latin America. Well, not Latin America, but certainly in the Caribbean. Peering beneath the surface. Listen to what they're saying here. Traditional headline economic indicators like GDP and unemployment tell us the economy is thriving. So they say that the United States economy is thriving. They're suggesting that the United States economy is thriving, but it is not thriving. Traditional headline economic indicators like GDP and unemployment tell us the economy is thriving, but they don't reflect the lived reality of most Americans. Ludwig said in a statement, Americans are working harder than ever, fueling our economic growth, but the benefits of that hard work are not being distributed in a way that supports upward mobility for too many middle and low income Americans. So if the United States, as the news here is suggesting, has a whopping 25% unemployment rate, it suggests that their poverty rate there is high, right? Because if you're not working, then you are going to be impoverished. Now, of course, the United States might have more welfare opportunities and benefits to offer to their people that Jamaica doesn't have. But the fact is that they're still poor. They're going to be poor. They're still poverty stricken. The fact is, how is it, therefore, that a country as poor as Jamaica is having low poverty rates when we are just simply merely depending on remittances and also tourism? And we know that the wage coming from tourism, had it not been for the remittances to help, many of the so-called workers at the hotels, if their family members weren't helping them, those who are in Canada, the United States, and other industrialized countries, if they weren't helping them, they would not be able to survive because they can't survive off the salary, the raw salaries that they earn at these hotels as wage workers. They can't survive on those salaries. They can't. But we are being given the impression that the poverty rate in Jamaica has declined. Now, do you believe them? Do you really believe them? Do you think the poverty rate in Jamaica has declined? I don't think it has declined. I think the poverty rate is growing. And it's time now for our media to perform their jobs and to get on the ground and begin to look and to assess and to interview the people in terms of how they're living. Because when foreigners go there, the poverty hits them. When returning residents return to Jamaica, the poverty hits them. It's there, right? And it's overwhelming for many people. One of the reasons why people don't like to go to Jamaica, apart from the violence, is that there's just too much need and it depresses a lot of people. The poverty in Jamaica depresses a lot of people, including returning residents, returning citizens of Jamaica. When they look and they see the level of need, it is overwhelming and it is rather distressing. So it's time for Dr. Andrew Holness, to come clean with the people and stop lying to Jamaicans that the poverty rate has been reduced, because I think that people see it every day and it's in their faces and they understand the need, that there's just too much need. And I'm not suggesting, don't come and tell me now that, oh, things are not perfect. And yeah, we know that nothing is perfect and there's no perfect economy. But what we're suggesting here is that if we're saying poverty is reducing or has been reduced, we should see that the economy is growing, that the economy is booming, and we're not seeing a booming economy. We're not even seeing an economy that is growing 6% or 5%. So me is the 0.5 to 1%. And if you do get to 2%, we have to be cheerful and have a party. All right, we need to have a party if we do get to 2%. economic growth. So I do not understand for the life of me. I can't understand how is it that Andrew Holness has the audacity, has the temerity to be telling people, to be lying to people. And I'm not only blaming him, I'm blaming also the PIOJ for dispersing, for diffusing such a lie. It's time for us now to wake up and to see that our leaders, economic leaders, political leaders, are lying to us. And we have to do our own research. We have to think for ourselves. And I think many Jamaicans are not able to think. Many Jamaicans are not able to think. And I can see it through the responses you're sending to me that you lack the ability to think and you're just being shepherded as sheep. And you don't care about what direction your leaders, your shepherds, are taking you into. But as an intellectual, as somebody who understands what life is all about, it is my duty to educate and to inform you, to let you know that what you are hearing is blatant or are blatant lies. And you need to take stock and you need to challenge them and let them know that that is not true. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe, like the videos so the videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. See you in another one. Hasta luego.